starting to you this time, Joe. Has the FIA created a mess at COTA and, like set a new precedent? Do you think they did a good job of cleaning that up today, or did they just end up making it more messy?
I feel it just made it a little bit more messy because from what we've seen, at least with the Max Verstappen case, it's pretty clear he pushed Lando Norris wide off the track. Lando Norris gave up the spot because then there was a question of, well, if he didn't give up the spot, could he face that penalty like he did at Circus of America? Well, Max Verstappen got that penalty, so in theory, he didn't have to. You didn't have the second incident where clearly this is, I think, just Max just, I just think for not thinking at the moment, goes in there. He was no way going to make that move work. Gets around Lando Norris off track, pushing both wide. That was just not smart. I think that one is not the concern for me, at least, when it comes to the FIA officiate. I think everyone could agree that second incident was blatantly a clear penalty. But it's that first incident because now we're essentially reversing the course of what happened in Circus of America. We're saying that, okay, you push somebody wide, you're getting penalty. Well, then what happened in Circus of America is that negated. If Lando Norris felt confident that he was pushed wide, decides not to give up the position, does Max still get that penalty, or did they say no? I think this is just becoming a big confusing mess, to be honest. And especially we have the upcoming track in Brazil. There are some runoffs here and there. There are corners where you could push your opponent wide to end that backstretch. We've seen that become an issue, especially when it's Max Verstappen versus Lewis Hamilton. I think this is just gonna keep going because throughout the day, I felt like everyone was just trying to push, not give the room like they used to. And the FIA, I don't know if they can during the season because we're so close to the end say, okay, this is how we're gonna monitor it now. But for the next season, I think they have to because it's almost becoming too predictable now. Someone's gonna make a pass if the driver gives them the room, if the space. But if it's not the case, they're just gonna end up getting essentially what held up, and then maybe a penalty, but we don't know. That's messy. I don't like that.
Yeah, I think they're kind of in a tough spot here. And I think it's good that drivers are being penalized, but now it is kind of creating a mess where there's not as many clean overtakes as there usually are. It's kind of like, for example, Max Verstappen these past couple weeks has just been, I don't know if he's playing mental games with like Lando, but he is racing like it's you race normally. Oh, there goes Carlos, there goes Charles, and then all of a sudden Lando's up here, and it's just like this different mentality from Max Verstappen to get into Lando Norris's head. And when it comes to everything, obviously he's pushed him off the track, I believe, 2 races in a row. And I think for Max, it's tough for him because not including sprint races, it's been like 10 since Spain, I believe, 10 races since Max Verstappen's been on top of the podium, which is completely unheard of for him. So I think he's being a little overly aggressive because if he's not going to win on the track, I think he's going to win the mental game against guys like Lando Norris. In terms of somebody who got their first career win and now is all of a sudden fighting for a championship in the same 20 races that have happened. So I think the FIA kind of, I agree with you, Joe. It's a little bit of a mess, but I think with all the penalties we have seen, it's definitely, they're showing that you guys just can't do this because we're going to throw penalties at you, and it hurts. It hurts a lot for some of these guys. I mean, there's a lot of points up for grabs these last, now it would be 3-4 races, including sprints, that you need to be on top of your game. But if all of a sudden you throw like a Max Verstappen 20 seconds worth of time penalties, I mean, he ended up finishing sixth, but he could have easily, without those penalties or driving people off the track, podium, and that would have almost not clinched him the championship, but he definitely would have, his odds would have been a lot higher. So I guess we're just going to have to wait and see what happens these next couple races. I think Charles Leclerc is probably the happiest of everyone watching these two go, like Max and Lando, go head to head. And if, like, for some reason at Brazil, say these two take each other out like they did, I don't know what track it was a Spa. They took each other out of the race. George Russell won. Correct me if I'm wrong if that wasn't Spa. But if Charles Leclerc is sitting in a position like that, all of a sudden that championship lead gets cut again. And then if that happens, say one more time, it's cut again, and it's going to be a three-way battle. But that's more fantasy than anything. But we'll see what happens. That's how I.
Well, Matthew, I wouldn't necessarily say it's fantasy. I mean, the driver's title is still not over yet. We could see something like that happen in this final few handful of races, but I agree it would probably be in the category of unlikely at this point. But never say never, because the motorsports world always surprises us. We've been surprised multiple times this season in Formula One. We thought Max Verstappen would have had this drivers' championship locked up, many races ago, but here we are, coming down the stretch, and he still hasn't clinched the drivers' championship yet. So it would not surprise me if we see yet another surprise thrown our way. But getting back to the question itself, yeah, I agree with both of you. I think it does get kind of messy, but after the penalties that we thought were kind of ridiculous last week at Coda, it was nice to see them actually make some good calls today. But it just goes back to the inconsistency that we're seeing with the Formula One race stewards, and I hope they try to continue to get better and make the right calls. I was pleased with the calls that they made today for the most part. Definitely better than what we saw 1 week ago. And I believe I have a question from Adam in the chat room. It says, who would have thought Max Verstappen having a 20-second time penalty? Well, after everything you saw last week, I thought it was a deserved penalty for Max Verstappen. It also goes to the notion, like I was saying privately among our group chat for Grid Network, Joe Matthew. I think that this is a Max Verstappen, when are you going to learn how to race others type of challenge, because it seems like when he's out front, had the best car, he's almost unstoppable when he has the best car and does a really good job. But when he gets back in the pack and has to race others, his racecraft is kind of messy at times. Like he's not always making the clean passes, pushing other wide, and it just seems extremely aggressive. And I'm sure that's very frustrating to all the drivers around him.